apakah persoalan yang sering ditanya oleh parent kepada anak-anak neurodivergent kepada kami sebagai parent lain kepada anak-anak neurodivergent?
Orang tanya, nanti dia boleh bercakap macam kanak-kanak lain kan? Yang itu memang sukar nak jawab lah sebenarnya.
I feel that as parents, we must be bold to make some mistakes. Yeah. And hopefully our common sense. You are right. Nah? I can imagine the peer pressure to do the same. But again, anak kami semua unique. Yeah.
Hello, selamat sejahtera. Selamat datang ke Kita Family Podcast. Hari ini kami merakamkan episod 103. Dan dalam episod ini adalah episod Chit-Chat Mak-Mak Neurodivergent. Chit-Chat ini adalah satu episod yang sangat, we hope to be light-hearted dan akan memberi inspirasi kepada parents, kepada anak-anak neurodivergent untuk tahu bahawa they're not alone. And sebab dalam Kita Family Podcast ni, kami meraihkan neurodiversity kerana setiap minda adalah unik, setiap cerita bermakna dan setiap keluarga ada kisahnya. In today's episode, we are going to discuss in part 1, what is it that parents ask us the most as other parents of neurodivergent children. Bermakna ini adalah episod di mana di segmen pertama kami membincangkan apakah persoalan yang sering ditanya oleh parent kepada anak-anak neurodivergent kepada kami sebagai parent lain kepada anak-anak neurodivergent. If we miss any question yang mungkin pada hari ini kita tak dapat utarakan atau kita tak dapat bincang, please leave it in the comments and we will pick it up in the next episode. With me today for episode 103 is Kakak SK in the studio. Apa khabar? Dan Didi dari Kota Kinabalu.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
Hari ni episod Chit-Chat ya Didi?
Okay.
So episode Chit-Chat ni, as we said, we are going to discuss what is it that parents ask, the questions they ask the most. Okay. Didi, can I start with you on one question that you think you often hear other parents asking?
Selalunya kan orang tanya, nanti dia boleh bercakap macam kanak-kanak lain kan? Yang itu memang sukar nak jawab lah sebenarnya. Lagi-lagi bila yang tanya tu dia nampak anak-anak saya dah boleh bercakap. Tapi kalau ikutkan, walaupun anak-anak saya boleh bercakap, bila dengar intonasi tu, terutama salah seorang lah, yang seorang petah, seorang lagi kalau dengar dia punya natural tone tu masih lagi berbeza dengan mereka yang typical. So jadi bila ibu bapa yang tanya kan, sebab yelah satu, we cannot tell the future, and memang ada anak-anak autistik yang kekal non-speaking sehingga mereka dewasa. Jadi itu adalah soalan yang macam alamak susahnya nak jawab kan. Tapi at the same time kita sebagai fellow parents tak maulah
Mengecewakan.
buatkan harapan mereka luntur.
Ya.
So susah tu.
Memang susah. So, Kakak, have you ever been asked, especially in your line of work, that is it normal or should I be worried? I'm sure that comes across quite often.
Every child unique. Understand that every child adakah dia progress. And bukan secara tutoran on cakap, right? It's communication. Yeah?
Okay.
We can look at it at that point. Then we don't compare. But we look at the individual anak kami. Adakah progression, not in the same, maybe not in the same about speech or communication. It's how they feel. Are they emotionally happy?
Yeah. Tapi persoalan-persoalan ini often ada underlying tone. Underlying tone dia ibu bapa itu mungkin memerlukan reassurance.
Absolutely.
Ya, itu adalah pada saya ini adalah tujuan mereka tanya soalan-soalan sebegini. Macamlah kalau anak neurotypical and then tak pandai membaca, dia hantar untuk kelas membaca. Lepas tu akan tanya, cikgu, kalau saya hantar kelas ni, anak saya boleh membaca ke tak? Itu mungkin satu analogi lah yang um, um, parent kepada anak-anak neurotypical akan lalui. Tapi ini adalah anak-anak neurodivergent. So pada mereka nak satu reassurance yang effort-effort yang perlu ataupun apa yang dicadangkan akan membawa hasil. Itu mungkin adalah persoalan dari dalam pertanyaan mereka. Setuju tak, Didi?
Betul.
Betul?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the validation yang kami dapat, even parent to parent or therapist to parent, is to just give assurance, right? At that point, mungkin dia berasa unsafe, concerned,
Anxious?
concerned, anxious, indeed.
Tapi saya nak tanya balik satu lagi soalan. Didi, kalau
Yeah.
kalau parent tanya soalan sebegini, adakah ini satu soalan yang perlu digalakkan? Kalau ditanya, is this normal? Should I be worried? Bolehkah anak saya bercakap? Adakah ini satu persoalan yang normal? Bagi Didi lah.
Sebagai ibu bapa, of course kita perlu tahulah tujuan kita, objektif kita bila pergi memilih terapi tertentu kan. Contoh hantar ke speech language therapy, then pergi hantar ke occupational therapist. Of course kita nak tahulah untuk apa. Jadi kalau kita of course bila kita cakap pasal speech therapy, semua orang yang dalam mula-mula anak diagnose tu akan menggambarkan belajar untuk bercakap. Kan? Jadi perlu bertanya, tapi itulah menjadi sukar untuk dijawab bila ditanya kepada ibu bapa lain. Lagi-lagi ibu bapa macam kita yang telah faham yang realitinya bukan semua anak akan boleh bercakap hingga tahap seperti mereka yang tipikal. Jadi, kalau soalan ini ditanya kepada terapis, memang sangat perlu sebab mungkin ia akan trigger kepada terapis itu untuk menerangkan ataupun mencari apakah condition anak itu secara khusus. Apa masalah dia? Apa isu dia? Apa dia punya objektif dalam terapi kan? Sebab ada yang mungkin dia punya motivation, ada yang dari segi fisiologinya. So, it's a valid question indeed. Cuma kesannya pada bila tu tanya sesama kita kan macam susah lah nak jawab. And then takut tersalah jawab ataupun nanti katalah kalau kita memberi harapan palsu. Kata, anak saya boleh lepas pergi 6 bulan dah boleh bercakap. Kalau kita memberi harapan macam tu, tetapi keadaan anak itu sebenarnya tidak sama dengan anak kita, alamak, macam tak fair lah kepada ibu bapa tersebut.
Yeah, I think dalam part 2, I think listening to Didi, what is very important is that is an opportunity untuk ibu bapa tu mempelajari, ya. Then they get to understand. I think questioning tu, mempertanyakan tu memang penting.
Yes.
Dalam itu, kami mempelajari lah bersama-sama either therapist ke ibu bapa yang lain, all the different situasi, and in fact even the science kan, what is the neurodevelopmental stage lah, not only technical, but to have a better understanding. Tapi I think what's penting, it's not about responsnya bukan how can my child be that perfect child. Responsinya is what can I learn to provide support. Kan? And questions like this needs to be consistent repeated because it's a learning journey, kan?
And sometimes the answers today may be maybe different from an answer that you would get 3 months ago,
Mhm.
6 months ago, or even 6 months down the line. So it's very time sensitive. Is that true, Kakak?
It's not only time sensitive. It's correct. So I think it's context. Kan?
Yes.
Mungkin pada masa tu something is happening that is increasing anxiety. So the performance pun drop. So that not only
Mhm.
for the child, but also for the parents. If I can speak on behalf of therapists, dia pun ada bad hair day, kan?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's quite a few
Bad therapy
things.
day.
Yeah. So bad therapy day ke ada yang tak cucuk. So that's why on the medium and longer term, as we all know, consistency, is something we look out for, but growth is something we hope, but support is something we know for our neurodivergent children that is needed regularly.
Okay. Next question that is often posed. And again, I'm going to ask both Didi and Kakak to comment. Jump in whenever you can.
Okay.
School struggles. Why is it that my teacher is not, or my child's teacher tak faham anak saya? Is that a question that is asked? To me, it's asked even in neurotypicals. It's not just neurodivergence, but even neurotypical parents will ask, oh, my child struggles in school on this issue. The teacher doesn't seem to understand. And having both neurotypical and neurodivergent children, saya pernah lalui situasi sebegini. So, macam mana dengan pandangan Didi?
Dia macam mana keserasian tu memang tidak instant dan kadang-kadang tak tercapai pun walaupun diberi satu tempoh yang lama. Jadi tempoh trial and error tu memang perlulah tempoh percubaan. Dan bila anak neurodivergent ni, anak OKU ni perlu lebih sabar dan lebih terbuka. Tapi mesti ada hadnya. Jangan sampai macam anak kita sentiasa menjadi mangsa. Lepas tu dia terlampau reda macam, nak buat macam mana? Saya sabarlah, dia cikgu. Tak boleh juga macam tu. So always memikirkan kepentingan perhubungan kedua-dua pihak antara, in fact 3 lah. Kita sebagai ibu bapa, guru tersebut dan anak kita macam mana. Dan nombor 1 yang saya paling utamakan adalah keselamatan lah. Kalau dah mula naik tangan ke menyebabkan keselamatan anak kita dalam keadaan yang tak bagus tu, yang tu is no compromise lah. Tak boleh lah macam tu.
Kakak, do you think that is across the board? School struggles and teacher not understanding the child?
I think there's high possibility that happens. Kalau boleh lah ya, responsi kami, kalau boleh try to have an open conversation. Now that's quite scary for parents, kan?
Yes.
Because on one hand, we want to protect our child. On the other hand, we have to step out lah to connect kalau boleh. Connect with that guru. Is there anything we can support? And the other thing, perhaps bila itu tak boleh jadi, maybe we need to invite another parent who may know this teacher better. We try to get as much help lah. Kami jemput lain yang boleh just connect us.
One of the best piece of advice I had when asked about school struggles, it was this, that life's not fair and school is a stepping stone sebelum anak kita menceburi dunia yang dunia pekerjaan, dunia higher education, itu pendidikan tinggi. So, cuba bagi masa dulu kepada cikgu sebab bukan semua cikgu boleh fahami anak kita secara segera. Kadang-kadang ia memakan masa. Tapi kita bagi masa yang munasabah. Kalau cikgu masih tidak memahami, kita boleh adakan dialog seperti kakak kata. Dan kalau lepas itu masih tidak boleh, tidak ada penambahan persefahaman ke apa-apa, kita akan revisit. Tapi kebanyakan masanya, cikgu-cikgu bila dah diberi masa dan mula fahami anak-anak itu, ada anak-anak yang datang cakap, oh now no problem. Memang cikgu dah fahami. Tapi perlu diberi masa sebelum ada reaksi.
Yeah. And I'm reminded janganlah fokus pada cikgu saja.
Yeah.
Check in lah dengan anak kami. Mungkin mereka yang perlukan a longer runway kan. So sabar. It's very hard to be sabar, but that's why ibu bapa we are the connector. Kan? Both side. Kalau guru dapatkan susah, then we check sama ada anak kami ada dia cukup masa, anak kami pun kami perlu sabar lah ya. I think that's the key.
Betul.
Urgent but sabar.
I selalu cakap pasal readiness kan. So readiness dari kedua-dua ni lah. Readiness anak kita, readiness guru dan sebenarnya readiness kita sebagai ibu bapa kan. Tu pun termasuk
Dan
juga lah sebenarnya.
adjustments on both sides kan?
3 side lah sebenarnya.
Ya, betul.
Okay, 3 side. Ya, betul. Okay. Next question that's always asked, and I'm just going to put it out there. Behavioral concerns and meltdowns. Are meltdowns normal? Will this go away? How often should I anticipate this? And what do I do when my child meltdown? We have done a lot of episodes on this, but still these are very, very FAQs, if we may say, frequently asked questions when we meet other parents. So I'll give it to Kakak to start first.
You know, the first thing that came to my mind immediately is meltdowns are communication. And again, this phrase, social detective or behavioral detective. Kalau meltdown tu, the picture is very uncomfortable. I'm very frustrated. I'm in pain. I'm uncomfortable. So kalau boleh ingatlah, itu satu komunikasi yang semua ni tak sedap badan, tak sedap hati. So again, reinforce, tantrum, meltdowns, all these are communication.
Okay. Didi, macam mana kalau dia kata these are behavioral concerns, what do I do? Macam mana nak deal with this? What would your
How many
answer be?
How many hours we have? Okay, meltdown kan, of course dengan 2 orang anak, dua-dua meltdown dengan cara yang berbeza dan trigger yang berbeza. Jadi lots of, macam kakak cakap tadi, lots of detective work, lot of try and error. And there's this satu statement that I kept seeing this past few days kan, lalu dekat social media, yang mengatakan kalau kita usaha hantar anak kita untuk EIP, nanti anak kita daripada severe boleh jadi mild. Nanti anak kita dah besar nanti tak adalah ada meltdown, which is macam rasa macam, well, it's true, but at the same time the challenges of going through puberty, which we are also facing now kan, memang ada a bit of regression as well. So it's not something yang kita rasa kita perlu di manage, diuruskan masa anak-anak kecil je. So bila anak dah meningkat remaja pun masih ada lagi insiden-insiden tersebut, and of course management dia lain dengan saiz anak yang sudah berbeza dan perasaan kita lah bila berlaku. So always, selalunya strategi yang orang share ialah apa yang kita perlu buat kepada anak tersebut. Tapi sebenarnya strategi nombor 1 yang kita perlu fikirkan lah apa yang kita perlu manage diri kita kan bila jadi. Kita perlu tenangkan diri dulu, bukannya macam okay, what are the things. So tenangkan diri and then make sure everything is safe. And then kita kan sebagai advocate ni also at the same time cuba untuk spread awareness lah, that this is not saying that it's a big part of being autistic, but it's one part of it lah kan, one part of it, and kita nak masyarakat menerima. And macam contoh, bila kita cakap pasal meltdown, of course we cannot run away from talking about trigger, kan? Trigger yang menyebabkan meltdown. So semalam saya pergi mall dan ada masuk waktu solat lah, solat maghrib kan, waktu dia singkat, dan Amy nak pergi solat dan dia masuk dalam ruang solat tu, saya tunggu di luar. So dia masuk sendirilah, tapi saya masih lagi nampak dia. Okay, kalau kita fikirkan solat itu satu yang sangat tenang kan, and selalunya di ruang solat walaupun di mall dia macam masjid lah, tak ada yang semua orang tenang lah sebab semua orang pun pergi untuk bersolat. Tapi pada ketika itu semalam ada 2 orang toddler, kanak-kanak yang umur 2 dan 3 tahun macam tu. So mereka berlari-lari di kalangan orang yang sedang solat lah. So saya dah mula macam alamak kan, sebab takut Amy terganggu lah.
Mm.
So bila dia keluar lepas sudah solat tu, dia cakap apa tahu dengan saya? Dia cakap, "Mama, I focus." So I was like, what do you mean? So dia cakap macam tu, what do you mean? Oh, because there were kids. So it's like despite having kids around, lari-lari, she remain focused. It was a big thing. Dia ingat dan dia
Well
nak cakap
done,
dengan
Amy.
saya.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So kita selalu fikir meltdown tu menyebabkan masyarakat terganggu. Orang keliling kita terganggu kan. Contoh kalau berlaku di tempat-tempat awam. Tapi sebenarnya ada banyak lagi benda yang boleh trigger mereka yang autistik. Daripada kita ni rasa terganggu dengan mereka yang tantrum dan meltdown di tempat awam, betul tak?
Betul.
So if only we look at it like a different way, thinking more about the environment, not just saya tak nak anak saya mengamuk lagi, tapi lebih kepada apa yang boleh kita buat, and yalah, what kind of accommodation, what kind of environment yang kita nak anak-anak kita lalui, and of course at the same time also challenging anak kita supaya dia punya threshold kan. Saya semalam dah nervous tau, macam alamak nanti kan tengah-tengah solat dia dia marah budak tu ke apa kan. Tapi so it was an experience lah, and it was big for her because I tak tanya pun dia yang cakap, "Mama, I focus." Because
That is a
ada
milestone.
time. Yeah.
That is well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that. And just following that kan Didi, sebenarnya we selalu tumpukan to all the individual neurodivergent. Actually, let us also remember we may be the triggering, kan? Making too strong punya demands lah, atau the pace, that we are not aware.
Yeah.
So what you mentioned tadi, yang trigger tu, masa tantrum tu, be aware, and Didi you always remindkan yang we are the
Co-regulation.
co-regulators.
Yes.
So check in kami juga, kami means the people around the neurodivergent, sama ada kami ataupun the surrounding, right, is a contribute. Yeah, that was a very good reminder, Didi.
Yes. So behavior concerns would trigger learning about regulation to the parents. Okay, next question. What do I do about sleep deprivation? What do I do about speech delay or developmental delays? Nak buat macam mana ni?
Wah, ni ada 3 question ni.
Ya. Sebab kita tanya. I tak
Mula dengan
tahulah.
satu dulu. Tidur
Kita
dulu.
mula dengan satu. Okay. What do we do with speech? What do I do? I tak cukup tidur ni. Anak I pun tak cukup tidur. I pun tak cukup tidur. Entah macam mana ni.
Dia memang perlukan usaha yang sistematik dan kecekalan yang sangat tinggi. So memang perlu aim. Kita kalau seboleh-bolehnya memang perlu pastikan anak kita dapat tidur yang cukup. Jadi kita perlu tengoklah contoh ada orang cakap, okay, you just have to let them run kan, siang hari exercise. So there was one time, I think I told the story before. So a group of friends, we brought the kids pergi trampoline park berjam-jam lah. So bila malam, early lah masa tu, baru pukul 9 macam tu, bila dah balik kan, the parents semua dah penat dah. We were like in the WhatsApp group, everybody was tired, but none of the kids nak tidur. The kids lagi hyper dekat rumah. Sebab apa? Sebab masa tu kita tak belajar lagi how to calm the kids. Kita sebenarnya arousing the kids. So banyak benda nak perlu belajar, bukan sekadar macam okay, macam kita mungkinlah kita kalau dah exercise kita penat kita boleh tidur lebih nyenyak. Tapi untuk anak-anak kita mungkin perlu massage ke apa, how do you tune them down kan untuk mereka ready untuk tidur. Perlu
Bagi
ada massage ke,
mandi, warm
mandi,
bath.
warm
Ah,
bath, betul,
ya.
jangan makan lewat sangat. So banyak strategi
Jangan makan
dan
gula. Ya.
betul. Jangan makan gula. Dari segi diet, dari segi kita punya rangsangan dan bilik tidur tu sendiri. Jangan bilik tidur itulah tempat untuk kita buat terapi, nak bermain dengan all these colourful toys apa semua. So macam anak saya yang kedua, anak bongsu, my baby. It took me few years to even train her to sleep on her own. Kalau tak sampai umur 8 tahun nak tidur ni, saya perlu pandang muka dia. We have to face each other. If I turn back, Mama, face me. Mama, hug me. So it took me lebih dari setahun lah untuk train dia tidur bilik sendiri. The steps macam mana. Sampai kan my husband kata macam, bila dia tidur bilik sendiri, ada tendency in the middle of the night dia akan menjerit. Bila terjaga dia menjerit kan. So memang kita bila terjaga malam memang sakit kepala kan. Sebab
Ya.
terjaga and then nak tidur balik. So my husband kata, tak apalah, bagi je lah dia tidur sekali. But I'm like, no. I have to train her. Like, I cannot. This cannot go on sampai umur berapa dia nak tidur dengan parents kan. So, but of course, sebelum kita nak train dia tidur separately, kita nak juga, kita mesti train dia supaya dia boleh tidur the whole night.
Ya.
Jangan macam 2 jam tidur, lepas tu dah jaga main-main. So, look at where your kids are. Learn about sleep routine, sleep hygiene. Sometimes orang ingat hygiene ni kebersihan. No, sleep hygiene is the routine. What do you do before the kids ni kan? So, a lot of things. Bunyi macam senang. Ajak dah tidur pukul 9, tutup lampu, tidur. It's not. I think I can write a book on just to train how one of my daughters, not just like both, one of my daughters to sleep.
You know, Didi, as you share that story, I pun ingatkan masa Joshua was very young. I had anxiety putting him to bed, wondering when he will actually really fall asleep. Yeah. I can only imagine ramai ibu bapa may have that. And again, that routine and being reminded that anak-anak kami dia perlu jangka masa lebih panjang untuk calming. Yeah, because minda dia memang terlaju sangat.
Hyper.
Kan? Terlaju. Dia masih
Yeah.
aktif. Kadang-kadang body sudah they lie down, but sebenarnya mindanya masih berjalan dengan amat laju. And in a way, I was feeling the anxiety. Knowing about that, saya memang kind of have the signs and understanding. So again, having the routine, being aware that mereka perlu jangka masa. I always say longer runway, is important lah. Of course, don't forget that sleep hygiene about stimulation by the phone. Dulu-dulunya sebelum phone, I think our parents pun make sure we don't watch TV just before we sleep kan. Actually, it's the similar thing. Simulasi macam ni dia akan masih aktif lah.
So, soalan terakhir bagi segmen ini yang kami selalu terima is, saya ingat anak saya ni speech delay lah atau developmental delay. So I suspect, where do I start? Macam mana nak jawab soalan ni?
Pergi klinik kesihatan dan perlu beritahu doktor secara terang, bukan berkias, bukan bagi hint. Dia cakap, saya risau tentang perkembangan anak saya. Saya rasa anak saya mungkin ada autism ke, speech delay ke, you sebut. Sebab saya pernah sebenarnya masa anak saya kecil kan, umur dia baru 1.5 tahun macam tu kan. jumpa doktor, tapi dia bukan klinik kesihatan, doktor klinik swasta kan, anak tak ingat siapa yang demam masa tu, tapi saya cakap dengan doktor, saya risau lah anak saya macam tak bercakap sangat. Masa tu anak saya dah tak sabar nak balik tau. Tiba-tiba dia cakap, "Let's go mama." Dia macam doktor
Alamak.
tu boleh je bercakap. Aduh.
Pada muka
Ya.
mama.
Itulah macam tapi sebenarnya it's a real concern. Tengok sampai dia ada je diagnosis kan. So I think kalau klinik kesihatan tu dia lebih lebih apa panggil, dia lebih teliti, and kerana klinik kesihatan juga dia ada MCHAT kan. Dia
Yeah.
ada MCHAT, jadi rasanya dengan klinik kesihatan tu lebih senang lah untuk dapatkan referral, rujukan untuk dapatkan assessment dan seterusnya lah. Ataupun macam sekarang, kalau untuk anak untuk mereka yang ada kemampuan, boleh juga pergi ke pusat-pusat terapi untuk minta assessment terus dengan occupational therapy ke, speech therapist ke. Mereka pun ada assessment yang mereka boleh buat lah.
Takes effort, kakak. How would you say? What would your answer be?
So I like to remind parents, first instinct kami sendiri, we need to pay attention. Yeah. Jangan khawatir. I think it's better to buat that appointment once you have the instinct. Ada tak bersama? You can check first with your friends. Actually, I like grandparents. Okay, I like teachers. These are the informal check. Trust your instinct, and it costs you some time, to get the professional check. So just now, klinik kesihatan, even your GP, kan? Of course, going to the specialist. If you go pediatrician, ask for the developmental pediatrician as well. So once you sense the difference, don't hesitate. Yeah, because it just takes that appointment. And sometimes mungkin if this persists, kan, dia persist, revisit it 3 months later. Don't feel that you are wrong. I think that's the key message that I like to put up.
So, kita tamatkan segmen ini dengan wrap up. Say, as parents, we do have our gut instinct. So kita ada perasaan dan yang terbenam pun, kalau ada apa-apa yang khawatir, do something about it. Okay? Kita dah bagi banyak idea, dan di episod-episod yang sebelum ni kita banyak membagi cadangan macam mana nak buat, mana nak pergi, and if you can go back to our episodes, you would get a lot of answers. So asking questions to us is a very good sign. That means you are a parent that's concerned, a parent that's willing to learn, and a parent that is willing to invest in becoming a better parent than what you think you are. So well done on asking questions. These may be like the top questions asked. We may have missed some of them. Tapi kalau ada apa-apa soalan yang tertinggal, tolonglah update kita yang ini juga soalan yang sering ditanya. Okay. So we'll take a short break and we'll be back with the second segment where we will discuss that overrated parenting advice. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Hello, selamat kembali ke episod 103 Kita Family Podcast, di mana kami menceritakan berkenaan hidup dan yang bermakna dan unik anak-anak neurodivergent kita pada hari ini. Ini adalah episod Chit Chat Mak-Mak Neurodivergent, dan kami sekarang akan membincangkan apa itu pengajaran sebagai ibu bapa yang adalah satu pengajaran yang mungkin gagal ataupun overrated. So basically it's parenting hacks that are either overrated or bound to fail, especially when parenting neurodivergent kids. So I've got a list of 5 here. Again, we're going to discuss why they're overrated and if they're overrated all the time. And I'll start off with Didi. Didi,
Okay.
kalau seseorang tu cakap, "Ayah, behaviour je, ignore the behaviour, it will go away." Boleh?
I tried. Like,
And?
sekarang menyesal lah. Menyesal sebabnya ketika anak meltdown tu kan sebenarnya dia perlukan saya untuk rasa lebih selamat. So bila ignore tu memang rasa abandon sebenarnya. So dia jadi menambahkan trauma kepada anak tu sendiri. So kesimpulannya advice yang telah diikut dan mendatangkan penyesalan.
Dan proses yang lebih lama untuk undo behaviour itu dan membawa ke jalan yang sepatutnya. Betul?
Yeah,
Okay.
tapi not all the time. Maksudnya macam if it's a tantrum, then we may ignore lah. Sebab
Yeah.
kita tahu goal driven and trying to
Get
nak control
something
kita
specific.
kan. Yeah, get something. Tapi kalau if it's a meltdown, then it's a different thing altogether. So itulah. So to people out there, do not judge lah bila nampak parents macam buat tak tahu ke apa ke. The parents are doing the best according to what they know at the time, and kita pun tak tahu, mungkin ketika itu memang tantrum pun, it wasn't a meltdown, but if it's a meltdown then a different way lah. So yeah.
So Kakak, when it comes to behaviours like this, we learned through our course about this allostatic load. And it's something that when it's way too much, it causes a meltdown. So do we ignore the behaviour? Do you agree with Didi that sometimes that's just like completely overrated advice because it's the easiest way out?
Even as I listen to the question, I cannot imagine macam mana nak ignore kan? Because it causes so much discomfort, distress, even imagining it pun. Because if we don't give it attention, address it, dia akan bertambah, surely. I'm just thinking logically, unattended to means you are even just as a parent, not listening, not observing, tentu meletup.
Okay, next advice that's always given. Just be strict. It will stop. Ataupun, ayah, bagi je punishment, lepas tu dia akan elok je. Dia perlu disiplin.
Yeah. I think my late parents had commented like why I talk too much to the kids rather than just if you say no lah, but then I explain kan macam okay, why not now, why you cannot have this, why you are doing this, like I always explain a lot to the kids. Itulah bila strict, it means that kita yang set rules, and no matter what, okay, this is it, kan. And bila kita cakap strict ni, it's always macam gambarannya dengan ada ketegasan yang macam ada raise voice juga, and there's also anger, there's also punishment. But kalau anak-anak neurodivergent ni, especially for autistic kids like my children, it's more of expectation. So sometimes memang ada rules, tapi the expectation what we want apa semua tu perlu jelas lah to them. But at the same time, if we are talking about autistic alone, they are creatures who love rules. So sebenarnya kalau kita buat rules, lagi dia suka, lagi dia senang follow. And sometimes rules yang tertulis dekat public kan, dia lebih dipegang daripada rules verbal yang mak dia cakap ni. Kan, sebab it's not written rules. It's just macam mama ni cakap je kan. It's not written. Kalau macam law kan, macam tak boleh ni, you cannot smoke here. Dia nampak je ada orang smoking, dia macam tak boleh tu, tak boleh tu. So being strict I think there's always balance lah. You tak boleh lah tak ada rules langsung. But then to some children, you have to make them understand why you make such rules and boundaries that we are setting up for them lah.
Do you think that's true?
You know, I think of it as mesti ada boundary kan.
Yeah.
And as we know, anak neurodivergent kami, dia perlu system, dia perlu order. So the strictness here, maybe let's not look at it from the point of they must comply, they must obey. You know, these words are important because they are the values we want to ajar anak-anak kami. Tapi I think it's the boundaries so that safety ada, not only for themselves but for other people. And as we know, a lot of our neurodivergent individuals, they can't think about other people. Not because they don't want to, not because they're nakal.
Just wired that way.
Wire dia tak sampai sana. And that's why we then become that boundary with them and for them. Itulah yang support.
Okay. Thanks. They'll grow out of it. Jangan risau. Lama-lama dia okey je. Dia je. Ini adalah proses pembesaran anak. Betul ke?
Macam apa cakap, biasalah tu budak-budak nanti okey lah kan.
Biasalah. Proses membesar tu je.
Okay, kalau orang yang tak rapat cakap macam tu, I would just say amin. Memang kita nak anak kita okey kan?
Yeah.
Tak payahlah macam nak debate. No, this is a lifelong condition.
Are you sure you don't want to
Because
start that conversation?
Actually, sometimes it's no point starting that conversation.
Exactly. Because you don't need a diagnosis to be quirky, to be eccentric, kan? So a bit of like me, it doesn't really matter. So, but advice yang cakap, oh nanti okay lah, tak payah pergi terapi. Oh, I pernah dapat. Masa tu, I was struggling to send. Masa tu baru anak seorang diagnose. Yang Amy belum diagnose lagi, anak nombor 2. So it was so hard for me to manage the two of them bila bawa pergi terapi that I had to send one of them pergi babysitter, hantar ada rumah jiran lah, minta tolong jagakan Amy while I took Afia for the therapy session dekat hospital kat KL lah. And then adalah biasalah kan bila nak ambil anak tu ada makcik-makcik lain and cakap pergi mana kan, sebab kita tinggalkan anak kan, bila nak ambil tu pergi mana, oh tadi saya hantar anak saya pergi terapi, anak saya lambat bercakap. Sebab kan to use big words kan, nanti kan makcik tu mungkin tak faham autism tu apa kan, so sebab dia lambat bercakap. And then makcik cakap, oh ada anak saudara dia yang mana-mana dulu tu macam ni juga, tapi bila dah besar okey, macam tak buat apa-apa pun okey. So macam, hello makcik, do you think I really want to drive into KL like every other day nak for apa hantar anak pergi terapi?
Betul.
It's not easy. Like lagi senang duduk rumah, tapi itulah. We pick our battles lah. Ada ketika macam rasa macam geramnya, ada ketika macam okay, amin, macam tu je lah.
That's really sabar from your part, ya Didi.
Yeah, that's positive thinking and manifesting. Kan?
Yeah.
We're grateful for that blessing.
Yeah. Thank you for the confidence.
So I have 2 words, press in and press on. Yeah.
Okay. What if you're told, tak apa, you tengok anak-anak lain, you jadi macam diorang. Ikut je macam mana parent-parent yang lain buat. Macam mana? Boleh? Compared to the other kids.
Ini macam, anak orang tu pergi terapi sekian-sekian, dia dah okey. Anak orang tu pergi, okay. All these specific advice kan. Dia macam, and then kan sampai level kadang-kadang tu, sebab orang yang memberi advice cadangan tu lah orang yang kita hormati. Contoh, kita punya aunty yang memang close dengan kita. So bila dia cakap tu kan, kita rasa bersalah kalau tak nak buat tau. Tapi at the same time, anak-anak kita dah ada program. Dah mula kan, kita dah ada pergi OT dekat mana, EIP dekat mana, sekolah kat mana. So macam kadang-kadang macam agak terasa macam should I try this? Memang terasa lah. But at the same time, have to look back at kita punya own life kan, lifestyle macam mana, limitation and what we have gone through, tengoklah program tu macam mana, dah ada perkembangan, dah ada apa. Tak bolehlah shopping around, kejap-kejap tukar, kejap-kejap tukar. Tak boleh juga.
Kakak, what if you asked to follow someone else's IEP or someone else's progress chart?
So I feel that as parents, we must be bold to make some mistakes. Yeah. And hopefully our common sense. You are right, nah? I can imagine the peer pressure to do the same, but again, anak kami semua unique, yeah. So hopefully, as sensible parents, kalaupun nak ikut, kalau terikut, please remember, you can always change that.
I'm reminded of this one book about neurodiversity, which is called Uniquely Human. So as long as you keep that in the forefront, that every neurodivergent child is uniquely human, and there's no one size that fits all, I think you're right on your way.
Yeah.
To the fine. Anything to add?
I just want to say, to pick up on Didi again, don't forget, yeah, bila tukar banyak sangat, dia tak, it won't take,
Tak melekat.
tak melekat, ya. It won't stick. Kesian anak tu, kesian ibu bapa tu, kesian therapist jugalah. Because it doesn't feel that it has been impactful lah. Thank you.
Okay, last one. This is quoting parenting advice from a neurotypical angle. Boleh? Sebab this fits for a neurotypical child, it fit for a neurodivergent too. The one size fits all.
Okay, I want to start this because sebenarnya is actually the other way. There is this term called universal design, where whether it's in education ke atau dalam environment ke, whatever is designed for individuals with different or special education need fits the typical. Yeah, because a lot more detailing, a lot more breakdown too. So I have to say the general experience is the other way. What fits the neurodivergent individual has got many possibilities, and yet it's not perfect. Yeah, it's not. I'm not saying it all is, but more possibility to fit the neurotypical situation.
So, nak ajak parents neurotypical mempelajari cara-cara parents neurodivergent mengajar anak. Betul ke, Didi?
Betul, sebab kan like my two children berbeza. So one size fits all tu memang tak betul lah. Like macam memang beza. And anak-anak autistik ni mengajar ibu bapa menjadi lebih organised. Dan kita kan bila nak plan even just a short trip pun, kita explain pada anak-anak kita point-point dia. Okay, bila nak pergi apa semua. I think masa I kecil-kecil dulu macam nak pergi, okay, nak keluar je. Tak ada, kan, jom pergi taman. Taman mana pun tak tahu, pergi ikut je naik kereta kan. Kalau dengan anak-anak sekarang, nak pergi mana, nak makan apa, pukul berapa balik.
Nak pakai apa, nak pack apa.
Nak pakai. Ya, betul.
Banyak planning, ya.
Banyak planning. Kadang-kadang macam dah tahu lah, okay, kalau lagi lama trip tu, berapa waktu in advance kan kita beritahu. Okay, lagi minggu depan kita akan pergi sekian. So and I think it's actually useful lah sebenarnya, involving the kids daripada muda kan. Sebenarnya dalam family biasa pun bagus juga.
Yeah, and sebenarnya not only for children, we know as research and facts show us about adult at work, in what we call access to employment too. It is actually the neurodivergent at work gives the opportunity for their managers to be aware and to be trained. Macam mana komunikasinya need to be clearer, need to be broken down into small pieces. So again, there is a demonstration even through to dewasa tu, that there are many benefits of looking at the neurodivergent way of working to detail it out. Yeah, is in the detail. The devil is in the detail, Annette.
Okay, devil's in the detail. So with that, our last piece of advice to tie up this entire hack is tell us about hacks that you have found overrated. But as parents who have gone through and heard all this advice, kita patut ada filter. Kita patut tahu anak kita lebih daripada orang-orang yang memberi nasihat tanpa mengenali anak kita. Kalau ia adalah terapis, dia ada science to back up ataupun dah bekerja dengan anak kita, ini adalah satu perkara yang berlainan. What we're talking about in Chit Chat today is advice that we receive from other parents. So kalau ada terima nasihat-nasihat macam tu, bolehlah kita filter ya. Kita tahu anak kita lebih daripada mereka. Kita filter supaya kita tidak mempunyai pressure yang terlalu tinggi untuk cuba dalam satu quest untuk menjadi parent Mitali ataupun parent yang akan buat kesemuanya bagi anak mereka. As we have discussed in previous episodes, that leads to burnout and we definitely want to avoid that. Our energy has to be focused on co-regulating, as Didi has discussed today. Our energy has to be focused on being a detective, as Kakak has alerted us today again. And when you need your energy to do things that will give positive improvement to your child, kita bolehlah tapis benda yang tak memfaedahkan perjalanan kami. So with that, we're going to end our chit-chat episode today. Kita Family is on Spotify and YouTube. Catch our full episodes on either channel. We're also on social media with our snippets. Please catch us on IG, Facebook, and TikTok. And leave us a comment on what you had to filter out of advice that you received. And we would like to share that around the next episode too. So before we end, please continue to like, share, subscribe. Get your friends to like us. We are on a quest to increase our following. And we will be announcing our next support group session soon. We had our first already. We will see you soon. Bye from Kita Family. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.